We are talking about presence, bringing your boldest self to your biggest challenges by Amy Cuddy. When I envision presence, I think of children. You see it in that kid dancing in the middle of the bank or unapologetically crying in the crowded restaurant. We recognize presence in people who shamelessly express their true feelings and values. Amy defines presence as a state of being attuned to and able to comfortably express our true thoughts, feelings, values, and potential. I know this has happened to you. Someone asks you, what's wrong? But you're pretending that nothing is for whatever reason, so you lie to them, I'm fine, and they call bullshit on you. See, a component of presence is the synchronous self, or being in alignment with yourself. So when your words don't match up with your feelings and expressions, you're out of alignment, and people will notice. But when we are aligned and present with our true self, we are able to communicate passion, confidence, and comfortable enthusiasm, which are all traits people are drawn to, even if they don't necessarily agree with you. Do you ever experience the belief that you don't belong, you aren't good enough, and that at any moment people will realize how utterly uncool and unqualified you are? Those fear-ridden beliefs are quintessential imposter experience. Basically, you are susceptible to the imposter experience anytime you feel you have an image to live up to or create. Amy said, imposterism causes us to overthink and second guess. It makes us fixate on how we think others are judging us, then fixate some more on how those judgments might poison our interactions. We're scattered, worrying that we're underprepared, obsessing about what we should be doing, mentally reviewing what we said 5 seconds earlier, fretting about what people think of us and what that will mean for us tomorrow. So unfortunately, the self-doubt steals our presence, and presence is the quality that is most likely to help us make a good impression. So instead of being worried about the impression you're making on others and getting caught up in all the stories in your head, ask yourself, what is the impression you're making on yourself? Tune into how you are feeling. Are you focusing on what you want to happen or what you don't want to happen? And I talk a lot about that in Ask and It Is Given, so check out that review for more. But when you are feeling powerful, confident, passionate, it transfers and is visible to others. You can't manage how other people feel about you, but you can manage how you feel about you, and that will impact others' perceptions of you. It's human to crave approval, but it becomes dangerous when we try to present a version of ourselves we think others will like and accept, but isn't actually us. When we present our polished, phony Facebook self in the spirit of gaining others' approval, we put our well-being and authentic happiness at risk. Think about it. If you put your deliberately concocted self out in the world and you still get rejected and you still fail, you think, geez, if my best self isn't good enough, then the real me will never be good enough. But the hard truth is you're right. You will never be good enough for everyone. So forget about trying to please everyone and follow your own heart. Eleanor Roosevelt said it best. Do what you feel in your heart to be right, for you'll be criticized anyways. You'll be damned if you do and damned if you don't. You can't save yourself from rejection or failure, but your pursuit to do so will certainly prohibit you from real connection and real meaningful achievement. So how about some tips to be more present and more bold in your life, especially when you're not necessarily feeling that way? Tip number 1 is to reframe and rename. Basically, we all get nervous and anxious before something that is important to us, like a job or a date. But instead of dwelling on the negative fear-based anxiety, we can actually reframe or rename our negative emotion into a positive emotion. So instead of telling yourself you're so anxious about the job interview, say you're excited and think about it from a positive angle. Instead of being angry with your husband because he's late, reframe and rename that thinking to be that you are excited to see him or passionate about the time you guys get to spend together. We don't want to deny our our emotions, but why not try to reframe and rename them from negative emotions to positive ones? Tip 2 is to reaffirm or self-affirm. And this is when we get very clear on our best qualities and our values. So these qualities don't even necessarily need to be related to the task that you're nervous about. Amy wrote, self-affirmation is about reminding ourselves what matters most to us and by extension who we are. In effect, it's a way of grounding ourselves in the truth of our own stories. It makes us feel less dependent on the approval of others and even comfortable with their disapproval if that's what we get. And I really appreciate Amy's take on affirmations because I think very often people try to affirm things that aren't true about themselves and it doesn't work. But this type of affirmation is just looking at your best traits and qualities, which is going to prepare your attitude and mindset for the journey ahead. Tip 3 is remember. Very similar to reaffirm, but we can also remember back to a time in our life that we excelled and felt powerful or good at something. And again, it doesn't need to be related to the activity at hand, but when you get in touch with the fact that you are competent and that you do possess the quality of presence and power, it will assist you in any undertaking that lays ahead. And tip 4 is to reset. And when I say that, I mean reset your posture. Amy covers all the bases in her TED Talk, Your Body Language Shapes Who You Are. So check that out. But essentially, your posture doesn't just communicate your feelings to others, it actually impacts how you feel. So if you're feeling weak and powerless, just spreading out and getting big and putting your hands triumphantly over your head, or as Amy says, get in the starfish position, you can start to feel better. So for 2 minutes, do this exercise. Hold yourself in a powerful position with a pleasant expression on your face, and you can actually change your mood. In conclusion, remember to reframe, reaffirm, remember, and reset your attitude and posture to bring your best self to the table. Know and start to recognize the freedom and the fact that rejection and failure are inevitable, so you can stop worrying so much about the impression you're making on others and identify more with the impression you're making on yourself. There is so much more to this book than I was able to cover. Unfortunately, I didn't have time to get to all the fascinating studies and research that Amy did. I highly recommend you read a copy of this book. Let's end with a quote. Our search for presence isn't about finding charisma or extroversion or carefully managing the impression we're making on others. It's about the honest, powerful connection that we create internally with ourselves. Amy Cuddy. Thank you so much for joining me, and you make it a great day.